Okay, so today we're going to talk about, we're going to start diving in more into these geometric sequences when they start involving percents, and this is leading into chapter 7 where we're talking about exponential equations, which is what we've been doing for the last couple of days. All right, so first off, we got to do a little review of some things from the past. So first we're going to start with converting percents to decimals. So my first one is, let's see, oops. My first one here is 78%. Okay, so we got to remember how to convert a percent to a decimal. Well, hopefully you're like, Mr. Gerber, I think it's just you divide by 100, which you're right. You divide by 100. Okay, so 78 divided by 100. You can type that in a calculator. Or what you can do is, here's one way that people like to remember. They like to find the decimal point. And this is what dividing by 100 means. You find the decimal point and you move it 2 times to the left. So you move it 2 times to the left. So now instead of 78, we're going to be 0.78. And then it's just a decimal. And then we just get rid of our percent sign. So converting percents to decimals, just move it 2 places to the left, or what you can do is just take it and divide it by 100. All right, so here's another one. So we have 113%. Okay, so we're going to, first thing I like to do is I always like to locate that decimal. I locate that decimal. Now, like I said, you can move it, divide by 100, or take it 2 places to the left. Taking it 2 places to the left, we have 1, 2. That leaves us between the two ones, so we have 1.13. I get rid of the percent sign, and there is my decimal. Now, obviously, that was bigger than 1, which is okay, but it's still 1.13. All right, so here's C here. I have 4%. I want you to try this one by yourself now. Okay, so with this one, you find the decimal point again, and you move it 2 times to the left. So 1, 2. Now, this one has a blank, though, so we need to fill that in with the 0. So we're going to have 0.04 as this one. All right, so D, I have 2.5% this time. I want you to try this one now. Okay, same thing, find that decimal point. It's right there. Move it 2 places to the left. 1, 2. You got a blank. You fill it in with a 0. So we're going to have 2.5% as a decimal is 0.025. Okay, 0.025. All right, let's do one more here. E, which is 0.72%. Convert this one to a decimal. All right, so same thing goes here. Your pattern stays the same no matter how the percent works. Okay, you're going to move it 2 places to the left. 1, 2. This time they're both blanks, so we're going to fill in zeros. So this one is going to be 0.0072. Okay. This is going to be very important as we progress through this entire chapter, that you convert percents to decimals correctly. So just always remember, move your decimal point 2 places to the left to go from percent to a decimal. All right. Okay, so here's our first problem here. I want you to try this one by yourself now. But it says, due to inflation, the value of a $20,000 vehicle has increased 10%. What is its new value? I want you to go ahead and attempt this problem. Okay, so this problem has a couple different ways that you can solve this. So I think what a lot of people would do is they would find out what is 10% of 20,000. Okay, so you might be doing like, well, 20,000 times 10% as a decimal is 0.10, okay, which equals 2,000. Now, now that's a $2,000 increase. So since it increased by that much, we have to add that $2,000 back to the $20,000 starting value. So then we get $22,000. That would be the price of the vehicle. Now, there's an easier way of going about doing this. Okay, so the easier way about going about doing this, I'm going to show it here. Okay, is by I'm going to tell you it's multiplying by 1.1, and here's how that works. Okay, if we kind of think about this, 2,000 is, like we found out, was 10%. So this value is 10%. Plus 20,000. Well, that's 20,000 of 20,000 is 100% of the original price. Okay, 10% plus 100% is 110%. So what we actually found was 110% of the value. So what you can do is take then this 110% and convert it to a decimal. So move it over twice, and you got 1.1. So now you have 1.1, so you could actually just take 20,000 times 1.1, and that gets you 22,000. And if you want, you can check that in a calculator. But now, by doing that, you don't have to worry about adding back in that original price. By adding the percentage to 100%, you've already got it there. Okay? So this is what we're going to have to do whenever we see this, something where it says increased by 10%. And what we call this is a percent increase. I'm going to write this in red. Okay? This is called a percent increase problem. So whenever you see a percent increase, and this even applies at every situation that we see in life, if you're trying to figure out what the new value is and it's a percent increase, what you're going to do is you're going to take 1 plus the percentage, but it has to be as a decimal. Okay? It has to be as a decimal, and that will equal your common multiplier. Okay? That's what you're going to end up multiplying by. Okay? So remember, the 1 represents our 100%. Okay? And that percentage as a decimal represents what we're trying to add to it. All right? So that's going to be very important. This is going to be something you're going to have to know and you're going to have to do for the entire chapter. Whenever you see a percent increase, okay, and it's asking for the new value or the amount left or anything like that, the amount there, you're going to do this. 1 plus the percentage as a decimal. All right. Now I want you to try the second one here. Due to age, the value of a $500 refrigerator has decreased 7%. What is its new value? Okay, so now that you've tried this one, let's go through this one. The same thing applies here. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll figure out what is 7% of 500. And I think what a lot of people would do is 500 times 0.07, which is $35. Now, that's how much we lost. That's how much it decreased by. So then what you have to do is you have to do 500 minus 35 equals $465. So that is the price of the refrigerator. Now, remember, this is not the only way you can do it. There are tons of ways out there to do this, you guys. These are some of the most common ways that people will pick. That's all what I'm showing you. But for what we're going to do in this chapter, this is not the method that we're going to want to use. There's one method that we're going to want to use. And this is how it comes about. It's kind of the same thing. But this time it says it's a percent decrease. It's decreasing 7%. So this is where there's something key that comes in here. So that 500 is 100% of our original value. And we found out that 35 was 7%. And that equals 465, which if we figure that out, we minus those two, that is 93% of the original value. Well, that's what we're trying to figure out is what is 93% of the original value? So the way we can think about this is taking 100%, minusing what we don't want, and that gets us this new value. So if you test this out, if you multiply then 500 times 93% as a decimal is 0.93, if you multiply that, which you should try it in a calculator, you should get $465, which is exactly the same value. So getting this to 93%, using that as our multiplier, is what we're going to have to do in this chapter. And this will apply for any type of problem that you have out in life, especially if it's like 25% off a t-shirt at a shop, or at like Nike or anything, if you go shopping there. Okay? Take 25% minus 100%, or 100% minus 25%, you get 75%, then multiply that by a decimal of the price and you get your original value, or the new value. So I'm going to do this in red again. This time it's a decrease by 7%, so we call this a percent decrease problem. Call this a percent decrease problem. And what we do on these ones is whenever we see it says decreased by a percentage, what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 minus the percentage this time, and that gets us our common multiplier. Okay, that gets us our common multiplier. Now remember, that percentage needs to be as a decimal. You need to convert that to a decimal. Okay, and the same thing goes with oops, I didn't spell that right. The same thing goes with that 1. The 1 is that 100% value, which is the original value. That's why we're minusing it from 1. All right. So let's test some of these out here. And we'll leave that on the screen for you. This time, so here's your first problem I want you to attempt. Okay, I have an increase of 52%. Okay, I have an increase of 52%. I want you to find the common multiplier if I say it increased to 52%. So go ahead and try that one. All right. So what you should be thinking, you should be doing percent increase. So whenever you see this percent increase, you're increasing. So we're going to do 1 plus 52% as a decimal. I'm find the decimal, move it 2 times to the left. I get 0.52. So I'm going to do 1 plus 0.52. And that gives me 1.52. So our common multiplier would be 1.52 on this problem. Let's try another one here. This time I'm going to say a decrease of, let's say, 22%. Okay, I want you to find the common multiplier if it's a decrease of 22%. All right, so we should be doing just like the percent decrease says. 1 minus the percentage as a decimal. Well, the percentage as a decimal is going to move it 2 times to the left, is 0.22. So I figure out what 1 minus 0.22 is. That is 0.78. That is going to be our common multiplier right there. So in this case, for this one, it's going to be multiplied by 0.78. That's telling us we have 78% left, which is what we're going to be trying to find. Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's go into a word problem here. Okay, so the article provides a model for how many PiPhones the store expects to sell. They start by selling 100 PiPhone pre-orders in week 0. So we're going to keep that in mind. The article says, teenagers and Hollywood celebrities flocked to an exclusive shop in Beverly Hills, California yesterday, clamoring for its new PiPhone. The store expects to sell by selling 100 PiPhones and expects to sell an average of 15% more each week. After that, I plan to stand in line all night, said Nellie Hillman. As soon as I own one, I will be the cooler than everyone else across the globe. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make a little T-chart. I'm going to make this weeks, and I'm going to call this N. Okay, and I'm going to make this PiPhones, and I'm going to call this up here T of N. Okay, T of N. So week 0, we have 100. Okay, now this says an average of 15% more each week. So I want you to ask yourself, is this a percent increase or a percent decrease problem? All right, so we should get percent increase. We're growing by 15% more. So since this is a percent increase problem, okay, we're going to do just like we did above. We need to find that multiplier, which is 1 plus 15% as a decimal is 0.15, which gets us 1.15. So that is our common multiplier. So we're going to multiply by 1.15 in this situation because we're growing by 15% each week from the previous week. So 100 times 1.15, we should get 115. Okay, and that's week 1. Now to get week 2, you're going to do the same thing, but because you got to go based off of week 1. We're 15% more than week 1 now again. So we need to multiply 115 times 1.15, and that gets us, and I'm going to leave this just as a decimal here, that gets us 132.25 PiPhones. Now, obviously, it doesn't make sense to have 0.25 PiPhones, but that's what we're going to go with here. All right. To get week 3, I want you to go ahead and find week 3 now for this problem. All right, so you should have done the same thing. You're multiplying by 1.15. Okay, so we're going to do 132.25 times 1.15, and we get 152.0875. Now, I'm just going to leave the decimal here for this case, but eventually we'll round this accordingly. All right, so now I want you to ask yourself, would this represent, if this was a sequence, would this represent a geometric or arithmetic or a neither sequence? All right, so we should say geometric here, okay? So we should say geometric. So now I want us to write the explicit equation for this geometric sequence. And remember, for an explicit equation, it's in the form of, I'll write it here, T of N equals B times G to the N. So I want you to go ahead and write this equation now. Okay, so we should have had T of N equals, our B is our starting value. We started with 100 pre-orders, so that's our 0 term. So we're going to put 100 times our growth. That's our common multiplier. That is 1.15. And then it's going to be to the nth. All right, so that's going to be to the nth. Now let's do one more question here. I want you to ask yourself, how many pi phones on day 21? So go ahead and answer that question. All right, so you should have put 21 in for n. So we should be doing t of 21 equals 100 times 1.15 to the 21st, okay, to the 21st. So when you type this in a calculator, you're going to type in 100 times 1.15. Then you want this, you want the exponent, so you can just use that. If you're using a TI-84, just the caret key above the division sign, and then type in 21. Type this all in at the same time, please. Don't type it in separately. So t of 21 equals 100 or 1,882.15 pi phones. Now, it doesn't make sense to have 0.15 iPhones or pi phones. So we're just going to say 1,882 because it doesn't make sense to have anything. You can't just magically come up with 0.85 pi phones. So that's where we're coming. Now we need a label, and we're going to have pi phones as our label. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay. And we'll pick up from this in class.